Oops, and here we are. Good afternoon, Melindy, Zaki. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good, thanks, Simon. How are you doing?
Yeah,
I'm really well. I'm really well. It's getting towards the end of the year, getting near Christmas time, so we're sort of all sort of wrapping up things and looking forward to the festive season. But I'm really pleased to have you guys on to talk about your business and what you've been developing, because it's really exciting, and it's a market for obvious reasons I'm not particularly familiar with, as it'll be clear. No, it's the Afro hair care market, so clearly that's not me really. But maybe you guys could tell us a little bit about yourselves and a bit about the app that what you've actually developed.
Yeah, okay. I'll go first. So my name is Malindi Mwangi. I am Kenyan, Nairobi born and raised. And I initially came to the UK because I was studying basically for uni. For me, one of the things that led me to conceptualize the app was that I noticed the difference between how easy it was for me to get my hair done in Kenya versus how difficult it was for me to get my hair done in the UK. In Kenya, I was spoiled for choice. Anytime I needed to get my hair done, it's easy. There's someone down the road. If that person isn't there, there's another person just a few meters away. It's not a hassle at all. But where I am in Buckingham, for instance, there are no hair salons, black hair salons. There are no barbershops. Zaki's going to explain to you his experience.
Yeah, I think black barbershops.
Yeah, there are no black barbershops.
Right.
And I found myself not doing my hair just because I didn't have options.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And Zaki, what about yourself? It's similar.
Yeah, similar experiences. I mean, Malindi is the one that conceptualized the idea initially. It's her baby. She just brought to me, and we started working it together.
Yeah.
So similarly, I'm Nigerian. I grew up in Nigeria, born and raised in Nigeria. I came to the UK, specifically University of Buckingham, for school.
Yes.
I graduated the end of last year, and I've been working part-time while working on like businesses, like one or two businesses like this being one of the main ones. Since I finished school. So I mean, similarly, I first lived in the UK when I took a gap year some years ago, and the first place I arrived in was Kent. That's where I was going to school. I was taking a gap year in Kent.
Okay.
And now I just finished university in Buckingham. So similarly, these are two small towns, at least smaller towns. There wasn't really anywhere for me to get my hair done. When I first, typically whenever you're watching movies about America or the UK, you notice that like a lot of people are very key on, a lot of black people are key on what barbers they go to. They typically don't like going to barbers of a different race.
Okay.
And I was initially not sure if it was just a preconception or if it was a myth or if it was something that actually existed. So I asked my friends who they would go to, and they suggested, I think, a barbershop that was in Kent. And after getting my hair done, they cut it low enough, as low as I wanted, but my hairline was crooked and diagonal.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So that was the first time I kind of had a feeling that, like, okay, there is a specific, I need to be deliberate about where I get my hair cut. Because there's different skills with cutting black hair and cutting Caucasian hair or otherwise.
Yep.
So that's kind of what inspired my perspective regarding the app, at least.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, in many ways, you've done what we at 12 Ronnies mentor and teach people to do, which is to identify a problem. Mm-hmm. It's not just to go and build something. Make sure that there's a proper problem first of all, and a demand to fix that problem. So you've taken that on along the right lines. And why the name? I mean, why the name? Is it Forienta? I mean, how?
Forienta. Yeah. So in my entrepreneurial journey, I have been working in the hair industry for a while now, actually. I started my first business in 2021, and I was selling Afro hair care products.
Right.
Now, the brand name is Florienta, or in full, Florienta Care.
Orienta. Right.
Yes. And so I was selling hair butters, which is basically like very thick oils, because Afro hair appreciates a thicker oil just because it's more prone to breakage, it dries out very easily. So thicker oils really help to lock in moisture in our kind of hair.
Yep.
That's what I was doing. I did a mini entrepreneurship course in Kenya for beauty brands specifically, and then I launched straight into doing this.
Right.
Musa is actually my middle name.
Okay. Oh, lovely.
But I don't use it much. So like if someone was to call me that, I don't think it would register that it's me.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like, okay, I can use it for this. Exactly.
No, that's superb. That's superb. Now, guys, I've prepared a bunch of questions, which I'll put up on screen. So as I showed with the first one, and just bear in mind that our audience here are people like yourselves that are either but are wanting to start a business or have just started, and they want to hear stories about the idea, the journey, the challenges, all of these sorts, all of the things that you may have experienced. So we've put together a bunch of questions, and so really building on from what we've just talked about here, bearing in mind our audience, you've got a specific customer profile that you're targeting, which is really good. We always say, yeah, you're looking for demand, but you're looking for demanding customer segments. It's all about identifying these. So maybe you could elaborate on some of the challenges that Black individuals face when seeking hair care in the UK in particular, maybe.
Well, something that we notice is that access is quite a big issue, particularly in the UK. I actually made a post last week about this very topic, which is that only 1% of salons in the UK actually know how to cater to Afro hair. And that's despite 1%. 1%. Wow. And that's despite the Black Afro-Caribbean population being 4% in the UK.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to add on, I think there's also another fact sheet found 10% Black people or Black women.
Black women.
Black women spend 10% they make 10% of the expenditure made in hair care in the UK. So despite just only 1% of salons catering to them, they still spend 10%. So there's quite a gap in it's quite a gap that doesn't meet the demand that exists.
Yeah, exactly. Because Black women are willing to spend on their hair, but the resources are just not there to meet that demand.
Well, that's wonderful in that you've identified this, you've identified your audience as such, you've identified the demand, and that there's challenges. I wanted to go on from there and talk a little bit about. Sorry, I just wanted to go on. Here we go. There's different parts here between, you've got a gap here between the informal and the freelance Afro hairstylists. And I mean, what I've seen is you've basically put together this, what you're calling the app is a marketplace.
Yeah, correct.
It's a marketplace and a community, it looks like.
Correct,
So how do you plan to bridge the gap between the informal and freelance stylists?
I think I'll let you take this one.
So I think like Malindi mentioned, one of the biggest issues is access. But there are two main issues that we think our target markets face, both access and price. And we think there's a correlation between the lack of access and how that impacts the price.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is give people more access by shedding light on the freelance market that actually exists. Typically, if you're a Black person or if a Black person seeking haircare services, you're either going to find a freelance, if you're looking specifically for a freelance barber stylist, you're either going to find them through word of mouth or you're going to have to do your own independent research. But we want to bring you an entire platform where you can see all of your options, because we don't want you to have to basically go through a hair care experience and realize maybe it's not the best for you and just have to start the process of searching all over again. We bring you a platform where you can look at the styles the different barbers and stylists provide. You can look at the price ranges they provide, and you can also look at the actual hair they've cut. So they would also have images of the previous styles or services they provided to other users, and you'd also be able to look at the reviews left by people that have used their services before. So it's making the process a bit more scientific and making it a bit more
like consolidated, I would say.
Yeah,
you have various options. Like you can look for stylists on Instagram, on Facebook, on all these other platforms, but that only adds to your buying process. Let's say that only adds additional steps. You have to go here, and then you have to sift through this, and then you have to go there, and it's time consuming. We want to take out that hassle, that time, and just give you one place where you can find all your consolidated info on Afro hair care.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great concept for that, and that really leads me nicely into, we mentioned about the community side of things. You're making it very community driven, aren't you? And in any launch of any business, if you can drive word of mouth, that's the strongest promotion. That's people recommending what you're doing. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about the community driven aspect, word of mouth aspect of your approach here.
So regarding the word of mouth in the Afro hair care space, something we have noticed is generally in different Black communities, hair care is traditionally done within communities. So even if I'm getting my hair done, if I'm getting my hair cut or getting my hair braided, I'm always going to be around a number of people. I'm going to be around a large members of the communities that may not even be cutting hair. They may just be in the barber shop or they may just be in the salon. So it's something that is especially, Black hair care is something that is especially done with other people around you.
It's so social.
Yeah, exactly. And we wanted to take advantage of that. We also noticed that with getting hair recommendations or with making hair service purchasing decisions, Black people always tend to
rely
on recommendations. Recommendations from friends, from family, especially if you're moving to a new community, especially something you're in an area you're not familiar with. So we wanted to leverage that. So that's why we're gonna have ways for different users to give ratings, to give different comments on the platforms, and just show. So now that's your gauge of word of mouth. It's word of mouth on an online forum, basically, on an online platform.
That's really powerful. That's really powerful to be able to engage community in that way and encourage them to spread the word as such.
Exactly. And if I can interject as well, the reason why there's so much reliance on word of mouth when it comes to Afro hair care is because it's a very big time commitment and financial commitment. So getting your hair done, for example, if I was to get braids, it would take me maybe 6 hours in a day to do. So now that is 6 hours.
Wow, 6 hours.
6 hours, 6 hours. So that I've spent a lot of time on my hair. Therefore, I need my money's worth. I need value, and I need to know that the person that I'm going to knows what they're doing. So I'm going to trust the recommendation of someone I know, someone who is close to me, someone who has experienced them for themselves. So we want to now bring that into an online fashion where people can leave recommendations. For example, introduce forum function where people can leave recommendations for people who are asking for help and advice. For people to just post their reviews or their ratings on certain stylists that are on the platform. And we also wanted to make sure that people's ratings and reviews had an impact on the algorithm.
Very good.
So the stylists that you see are the ones that people are upvoting or rating positively.
I think that's how these platforms, these community-driven platforms, work best. If you can get people to get involved in rating I don't know, that's and for other founders, for other people looking to launch businesses, I'm just actually going to move to about the MVP, your actual launch yourself. would you be able to share some key learnings about the launch of your MVP? Because a lot of people would like to launch two-sided marketplace platforms, which yours is as such, and maybe you could share some of your learnings with the audience.
Let me take this one. So basically, we launched the platform with our current MVP. That's what is up on theflorientaapp.com. It's basically a communal platform. We started with a communal angle. So people would be able to create their own personal accounts, and
both service seekers and service providers.
Yes, and it's similar to just like a social media platform where people can talk, can engage, things like that. Well, with any launch, it can be a bit tricky just depending on where your audience is at and what they need from you. And something that we hadn't factored in was the fact that an additional platform might just lead to overwhelm, for example, for barbers and stylists or even service seekers, because that's just yet another platform that they need to go to, that they have to manage, that they need to sift through. And we hadn't built that loyalty yet. It was too much too soon. And so there wasn't a lot of traction on the platform. There was some users. We did get a number of users onto the platform, but daily use of the platform was very, very low.
Quite sparse,
So we were advised. I got some advice from one of my mom's closest friends. He's in tech himself, and he mentioned that it would be better if we went bit by bit. So just having something as simple as a directory where there's not a lot of commitment from service seekers or service providers. Service providers, all they need is to have the information up to see. The service seekers, all they need to do is just come and scroll through the directory.
You can look at what styles they have.
There's not much that it takes from you. And then from there, we can build the trust and then lead up to something that is more social, more communal.
Well, that was very good advice, by the way, you got there. And because many founders want to create, they're all singing, all dancing. And that takes forever and often. By taking that approach, it's focused, it's obvious when people come there what you're providing. It's your MVP. Really good approach.
And something he had mentioned is we needed to focus on what our most important value add was. And our most important value add is just a platform where you can find hair services. That's what we needed to simplify it to. By trying to jumpstart it by making it a social platform, you're adding a lot of things that people aren't as concerned about. Because if I'm coming to you, if you're advertising a service where I can get hair services, why do I have to create an account? Why do I have to be chatting with people or to make a post to find a hair stylist or barber? Like, I have to go through a lot of steps as opposed to it's clearly in front of me. This is who they are. This is what they do. This is their price, and this is their contact information.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And actually, I'm just thinking, putting up here, it's evolved, hasn't it, from this service directory, the initial side, and it's evolving. And how do you see that evolution going as you really want it to make it much more community driven? For your marketplace, for the Afro hair care marketplace?
Well, we plan to evolve incrementally. So we're really taking that advice in stride. From having a directory, the initial idea is to make sure that the directory is managed by the both of us, for example, at the initial stages, to just make things easier, to make sure that we are inputting the correct information, things like that. And then from there, we would turn it into a personalized directory where barbers and stylists would be able to take control of their own profiles, manage what kind of information that they want to have their prospective clients see, things like that. With photos, for instance, is what we were thinking.
So initially, like you said, the first directory is just something that her and I would manage, for example. It doesn't require anything from the barbers and stylists or the the service seekers to
Yes.
create anything or to input anything. You just give us your information if you're the service providers, and you just log in. You just enter the URL if you're the service seeker.
Yeah.
But the next step is when the service providers, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on the next step, but the service providers have control over their own platforms. They'll be able to log in, they'll be able to edit it to some degree. It's still going to be a directory. It's still probably going to be a 1 to 2 page directory, but they can at least make the changes themselves and control exactly how they want to present themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So you've actually probably covered a little bit of this one of my later questions here about strategies.
But
in that you're evolving it now, and it's for both service providers and seekers to find value.
So,
is there any other sort of strategies involved?
Yes.
So I think one thing I wanted to mention is there are a few more stages to like how the app is going to evolve. Like at some point, service seekers are also going to be able to create accounts. Afterwards, we're going to make it a forum where they can make posts. Each service seekers and providers, they can make posts and with photos, with text, with whatever they want. So we're trying to just scale up the different value adds just to make sure it's easy for people to get used to the next version.
I was going to say that this is really valuable for our audience, for founders, to understand your approach of identifying a problem, a demand for a problem, of developing an MVP as such. I mean, that's a really good then execution of that.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about all the scaling side of things. So you're putting together strategies to say, well, we're starting small, we're starting focused, and this is what we want to do to scale. And I think that's really important for our audience to understand this sort of approach, rather than trying to do everything in one go and trying to come up with a scalable solution straight away.
So I mean, with the other strategies we're thinking of implementing is, so off the jump, well, they're going to have the hairstylists and barbers are going to have access to a wide customer base. They're going to have access to a wide number of people that they can even interact with, and they can post and advertise on our platform. We're giving you a method for you to advertise easily and quickly to a large number of people. We also want to eventually give the hairstylists and barbers, we eventually want to have different hair care brands also advertise on our platform. So one of the things we'd get in return for that is we want to give hairstylists and barbers access to discounted products and equipment that they'll be used for the either their hair cutting or hairstyling process.
Yes.
We'd want to give hairstylists and barbers, these are all long-term things, access to occupational health insurance. And I think we would eventually want to look into, at some point, having physical locations where barbers and stylists can rest. These are long-term goals, much well in the future.
Do these come under partnership side and collaborations?
Yes. So a lot of our strategies do involve partnerships and collaborations. Something that we want to, essentially the vision for the app is to digitize the entire Afro hair care market into one space. So you have different players. In the hair care market, you have your stylists and your barbers. You have your product brands. You have obviously your end users, your customers. And you even have influencers, hair care influencers. Now,
I was going to ask about that.
Because before you asked us the question on Ideas Nest, we actually hadn't realized that it's not intuitive to have hair care influencers in different spaces. So the reason why Afro hair care influencers are actually so important to the Afro hair care industry is because our style or our type of hair requires a lot of intricate and technical skill.
Yes.
And so you'll find a lot of influencers providing tutorials on how to do certain things to care for your hair or to maintain your hair that are not it's not just intuitive for you to know these things. You have to learn them. There's skills that you need to build.
Yeah.
And for a long time, this has been happening on platforms like YouTube, where people post a lot of their tutorials. They amass a following. They become trusted in the industry. And so that's how you find these big names in the Afro haircare industry making themselves out to be influencers.
Yeah.
And so that's where a lot of people sometimes learn. For example, they're self-taught barbers or hairdressers, and they will learn off of
haircare influencers.
Off of haircare influencers. And actually, I'll throw in another statistic. It wasn't required until 2021, 2022 for professional hairdressers to learn to do Afro hair before receiving a qualification. Meaning you could be a professional you could be a professional hairdresser and not know how to do Afro hair because it just wasn't required by the syllabus.
Yeah.
Even though there's such a large percentage of the population.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn this, you have to turn to these influencers. That's why there's such a crucial thing. And so we wanted to collaborate with these influencers so that we can attract them to our platform. We can provide attract their audiences, provide them with a place where they can grow their niche following, because now it's not just about growing an audience, but growing the right audience. And this platform is filled with all the people who would be extracting value from your content.
And at the same time, it would also provide a lot of value to the service seekers or just any Black person or Afro hair person that's trying to get advice on what to do with their hair or trying to understand what the right products to use, etc.
Yeah.
So now this is how we're also trying to foster the community aspect of the platform, because if you get influencers, you're trying to get their audience, that prior audience and their new audience to find on the platform to interact with it. And just mentioning another collaboration, Malindi mentioned their haircare brands. We also want to, so at least in my humble opinion, there's also a bit of lack of access when it comes to, not as much as haircare services, but lack of access when it comes to haircare products. So we also want to make sure that's something that we eventually add to the platform, and we somewhat want to monetize the platform by advertising for them as well. Either through our own, either directly on our platform, and we would also want the haircare influencers to be able to monetize themselves as well by having ads from the haircare brands.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, I've got a couple of sort of forward-looking questions to finish with on our time. So one of them is about the impact that you're hoping to make here with your app. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what your hopes are in terms of visibility and success here.
Let me jump in on this one. So I think that the grand vision is to just ensure that Black stylists, Black hairdressers, Black barbers have a platform where they can be recognized, where their services are at the forefront so that their clients can see them, they can be visible. And something that we visualize is that this doesn't just exist in the UK. The lack of visibility doesn't just exist in the UK. There's other places where there's a healthy African diaspora that lives there, but the visibility for these services is very, very low. For instance, we've noticed this with South Korea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there seems to be a good Black demographic there, but problems with finding haircare is an issue. So we can easily see how this solution can fit into different markets.
Yeah.
And we can see how we can make this into a global marketplace.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for example, something interesting I've noticed is that a lot of Black people in the US will travel to different locations to get their hair done. So,
really?
Yeah, people will take flights, for example, from
flights to get their hair done.
Yeah.
Flights from the US to Nigeria, for example, where they can get their hair done for much, much less than,
including the cost of the tickets.
I think, including the cost of the tickets.
My gosh, guys, my life's a lot simpler, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, people there's just value in it, and value
Yeah.
in exposing the different markets to the global scene. So for instance, if you can expose the Nigerian Afro hair care market on a global scale, now more people in the US can see, oh, there's all these options, why not explore? Or people wherever in the world. So the vision is to just increase visibility for the Afro hair care industry wherever it may be.
Fabulous, fabulous. And then just the last question is like your long-term goals really here. So as well as you seeing the opportunity to go into other territories, do you seeing the impact you're making? Is there you've sort of covered this anyway, but is there anything you want to finish with about the long-term goals before I sort of share the app, how people can get hold of you and things like that?
Yeah. So I will share this in the sense of what my entrepreneurial goal has been in terms of the Florienta brand. So I did mention earlier that there is a product arm to the Florienta brand that does the products themselves.
Yes.
The Florienta app is the service arm, so providing service solutions, providing product solutions. And there is a media arm to all of this.
Okay.
It's basically about, it's a podcast where we talk about the politics of Black hair, essentially the issues that Black people face, such as like hair discrimination, how their hair is viewed and treated in society. And so on the one hand, we're providing physical solutions to hair care, but on the other hand, we're providing like a safe space, mental, emotional solutions to hair care as well. So we just want to consolidate this and make it well-rounded. That's the overall.
Fabulous. Well, this is...
Sorry, just to add, I was going to say something that Malindi had mentioned earlier. I think I had a proud conversation with me, is something that she really has a vision for, and I share with her, is making this an entire ecosystem. Making sure, like, because another aspect of that I want to just touch on so you can get an idea of what I mean is we want to eventually provide business solutions for barbers and stylists, things that help them make the provide their services easier. Whether it's like an scheduling facet of it that will help them plan exactly when to leave and when to get there. That will also maybe there's also like a stock aspect of it that details what equipment they need or products based on the hairstyle that they're providing to the customer. Right. So just making it very robust, making it very comprehensive.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about the different partnerships we want to work with. We want to make sure that like the Florienta app creates a community, not limited to that itself, but it creates a community for Afro hair people to be able to get whatever advice, products, or services they need. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I could talk all day with you guys about how you're setting this up, and I love the fact that you've demonstrated so many parts of entrepreneurship, right from problem solving to identifying customer segments to building MVPs and planning for scaling. So Malindi, Zaki, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Wanted to share a couple of things just before we finish here. One is you mentioned you put your idea onto Ideas Nest. And if you go to ideasnests.com or onto the 12 Ronnies website, you'll find Ideas Nest, and you'll be able to look at how Malindi and Zaki have actually identified the problem and put the different sectors there and be able to ask questions on there.
Yeah.
But very importantly, if you're interested in the app and going and looking at the community and the services involved there, please go to the website itself and sign up for it there.
Yeah.
So guys, thank you very much for a very enjoyable half an hour.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank
Bye,
you so
guys.
much.
All right.
Bye for now.
Right, cheers.